Hi, I'm gonna respond to some comments. Here I have a comment from Keelam03 who responded to the short "How do I let go?" She says, so you're saying letting go is accepting without resistance. Yeah, so acceptance is a lack of resistance. So it doesn't mean we become passive, but it becomes so that we accept what is, and then we see what naturally wants to come up, what's naturally our next step. How does life want to unfold? I like Michael Singer's definition in the surrender experiment. He said, a thought comes up and I just allow it to be there, but instead of steering with the thought, I see what wants to come out of my mouth, or what action naturally wants to arise. Okay, so this is a comment from Protentogo. He commented on the video, you don't have to fix yourself because you are not broken. So he says, lovely video, thank you. It seems after years and years of fixing me, I've lost my intuition about if and when I have to work on myself. It's always you have to push yourself because you'll feel better afterwards. And indeed, it's quite logical because you take control rather than being passive and sitting in front of the computer all day. But man, by that reasoning, you can't rest a single second because there's always stuff to work on. And it's really hard to find a reasonable middle ground with a scattered brain that's all over the place. Well, thank you for that comment. Yeah, it makes sense that this is really intense for you and this journey is really intense for you. There are people that find not so much coming up. You apparently have the same like I have, that you find so much that comes up. And for some people, this process seems to be on fire and they're sort of burning away all this karma and all this stuff that's coming up. And for others, it's more like I've seen a sort of water flavor where their presence sort of melts it away and they don't really feel this fire to need to engage with everything, but they just allow it, and that's their natural sort of tactic to move through this. Often more softer, compassionate people. And I was definitely on fire. So I see this with you, that you're on fire. And I think, first of all, we don't have to always put more wood on the fire, so it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. We don't have to do that because sometimes then it can feel too intense. So it's nice to sometimes take a break and write down things that come up, but don't do anything with them, for example, and maybe then later look again to make sure that you're not totally on fire the whole day and every time, and that you have breaks. Which is actually really important because you don't want to fry your nervous system in this process. You want to make sure you have enough rest time. You want to make sure that you're grounded. You want to make sure, especially if you're on fire like this, you want to make sure that you have the possibility to relax. Maybe there's also this identification with suffering. I talked about that in a recent video. I think the video is called "Is Suffering Your Identity or a Part of Your Identity?" And I think in general, this work that you're doing sounds like you're doing the right work, the right things, that you're, I don't know what technique or what thing that you're particularly doing, but if things come up, then you're obviously, let's say, on the path. But it's definitely, I think the biggest trap in this is maybe I've addressed that in the video that you've watched, but is that you come from this place of the lack belief in the first place. So a lot of times I worked on myself from this place of not being good enough, which was actually the main identity. So from that place, you can always find things that are not good enough because that's your lens of perception. So you don't want to focus on your lack, but you want to actually come from the standard or realize that you are source, you are wholeness, you are God, you are perfect already. And that the thing that you're looking at is also perfect, but it wants to transform in your presence. So you don't have to go about and analyze and try to dissect everything yourself. It also wants to be just released. So when you let go, when you surrender, when you take it easy, and this is a sort of a balance if you're on fire, but then it can also dissolve itself because it wants to be dissolved. And probably that's what you've seen. So I've seen in my spiritual progression, so to say, looking backwards, was not so much based on all the work and the techniques I did, but more based on all the surrender I did outside of the techniques. So letting go and surrender is, I think, something that creates automatically this reasonable middle ground. So don't have the feeling that you need to do a certain technique, but just see where your natural inclinations or your natural joy takes you. And sometimes that's doing a lot, but that's fine. But if that's a little bit imbalanced and you're not trying your nervous system, you're doing well, because on the path, this process can be really intense, and sounds like it is for you. And after like the first 2-3 years seem to be more intense, and the last bit seems to also be intense, but between that usually there's more stability and you get used to your body processing, your nervous system processing, and how to handle, how to eat, etc. So thanks for your comment. Okay, Shana E1W said, do you need meditation and shadow work, or is meditation enough? Thank you. She responded to the video, how meditation changed my life. So the interesting thing, is meditation enough? Yes. Meditation can be a form of shadow work. So it doesn't have to be so linear, especially if we're more inclined towards natural meditation, which is where you're sitting, but you're not doing anything. You're not doing any technique. You're not trying anything. You're not avoiding your thoughts. You're not avoiding your feelings. You're also not believing and engaging your thoughts a lot, but you're just allowing what naturally wants to be. That's natural meditation. And in natural meditation, if things come up, but you're not reacting to them or you're not giving them more attention, they naturally want to subside. So in that way, it's also shadow work. But then what I did was, oftentimes I would sit in that natural meditation, but then when things came up that were intense, I would focus a little bit on them and give them that attention that they wanted. So yeah, shadow work, for some people, they need specific things. Let's say the body is doing a lot, then we need to help the body a little bit, ground and work with the energies of the body. But for example, if the mind is on fire, we need to work with that and ease the mind a little bit by not believing our thoughts, by surrendering a little bit more. So yeah, you don't need a formal shadow work practice, but if stuff comes up, you just focus on it and see if you can release it, or it wants to release itself. So see if you can sort of space hold for it. Okay, let's see. Okay, so this is Mokiranor Boyeva Brown 552. On the video, am I having a Kundalini awakening? Thank you for sharing this with us. In my case, I didn't quite get it. what eventually happened to my body. I wasn't even asleep, but suddenly my visions and body started being not like myself, but like something else is having it. Shaking, foray, I get it. My head had feelings like it was getting huge, like a room, then a whole space, then it finished. I kept having some blast, and today I'm feeling like nothing happened at all. But I must admit that my knows what's doing before I set a plan. Okay. Not really clear, but it sounds like a big experience. And I hope you're doing really well. Moki Ranor, and yeah, it's with Kundalini a lot can happen if we are inclined to this energetic path, which also naturally unfolds for us, right? There's this idea that with Kundalini we need to really work with it. We need to really be careful. We need, and in a way, with the whole spiritual path, we don't want to force anything. We want to watch our intuition, see if this works for us, see if our body likes this, see if our nervous system likes this. We don't want to go against the body and the mind. We want to work with the body and the mind in this process. That's crucial. So the fact that you're feeling like nothing happened at all is actually quite good, because that means you haven't fried your nervous system. And it's not really like this this problem right now. We want you to be more functional in your life at the end, instead of less functional because of the spiritual experiences. Okay, Pug 7053 asked, is there a real self, or is it all just psychic phenomena? What is the way to nirvana, one should ask. Okay, is there a real self? No, there's no real self, but there is a sensation, which or a contraction is what Jim Newman says, which gives the feeling that we're in the body, and gives us the feeling that we're a separate self, that we're here. And I remember having that feeling before the self dropped, and it's a sensation. It's a flavor. It's a flavor to this. It's a flavor in this. So, is it psychic? Well, it's psychic and somatic, because it's a feeling, right? It's a sensation in the body. Then what is the way to nirvana, one should ask. Depends on how you define nirvana. You have the freedom from suffering, like liberation definition, which is just, walk the path and do not come to any core conclusions, right? For example, I am awareness, your awareness, and non-awareness, right? So, and then there's the other definition of nirvana, which is lights out, which means actually not being conscious anymore. Cessation of consciousness, or basically the ceasing of consciousness, which is like something that's inspired, or something that's aspired, I should say, by some meditators, especially Buddhist meditation. You want to get a cessation, because that's like really good, because then you go to the next level and consciousness can reset and things like that. I think cessation is not necessary. Just not consciousness. I've experienced that. We all experience that in deep sleep, right? We're not conscious. We're not dreaming. It's just black, empty. The black is maybe the wrong thing to say, but it's just, there's nothing there. So I don't think that that's something to strive for, right? Unconsciousness is not the place we want to go with this. We want to live happy lives. Most of the people that are into spirituality just want to be happy in the end, and they're pulled into knowing the truth or being with what will make them happy. So walk the path. And there are many ways. And I think I'm talking about surrender and meditation and dissecting or deconstructing the identity most. Okay, so medium, nitit, spiritualiteit, I think he's French, says regarding to the video dealing with Kriyas, involuntary muscle movements in a Kundalini awakening. He says, the Kriya symptoms I experience, my head starts spinning, wave-like motions in my body, my hands twitch, my shoulders and back move, I yawn, and my eyes tear up at the end. The most uncomfortable symptom is the twitching of my hands. It starts within the first few seconds. I practice 5 minutes of pranayama, spinal breathing, and then 5 minutes of deep meditation using the mantra I am. Something inside me urges me to stop for reasons I can't quite understand, accompanied by a lot of arguments. Not enough time, it's pointless, etc. Do you have any advice for me? Are these symptoms normal during my meditation? Thank you. So I think this is a longer question. You can always book a free call. But these symptoms, if you have active Kundalini, these symptoms are, they happen. Not all these systems are something I experienced, but I've heard of this for a lot of people. So any advice for you? So if you say something inside me urges me to stop for reasons I can't quite understand, you don't have to understand your intuition. I think your intuition is saying here, enough, please. Like, we get this. We want you to go step by step, right? Because for a lot of people, our system, if we're just exposed to liberation or freedom instantly, our nervous system, our mind, the whole system cannot handle it. They're in the awakening process. I felt the body like reconfigurating, like so many like energetics and things in the head changing and perceptions change, etc. That's biological change, and you want to make sure that happens in a way that it's not harmful for the body. So some people, especially if your Kundalini is active, you're sensitive, so that means don't practice too hard. Right? So if something incites you to stop, then see if you say it's accompanied by a lot of arguments. So that means and not enough time, it's pointless. So it could be that the mind is stopping you here, or are you feeling uncomfortable because you said something inside me urges me to stop. So often when you feel a sort of sense like this is not good, then stop immediately. But if you have just a lot of arguments, but you're actually feeling like it's quite good in the moment, just have a lot of arguments coming up, then maybe it's mental. So maybe it's just like ego resistance. That's also possible. So this is something for you to watch for, because I've heard of people that inside them they said no and they continued and they had not so pleasant things happen which they recover from. But you always want to listen to your intuition, let's say. And what is intuition? Intuition just doesn't argue with you. It tells you, no, don't do this. And it doesn't tell you why or a whole story or I should, because no, it's just a feeling of no, don't do it. Or it's an anxiety or a feeling that comes up that says, no, I don't want this. Right? So trust that. Thank you, medium nitit spiritualiteit. Thank you so much for your comments. I always try to respond to them, and otherwise I can make a video like this. So have a great day. Bye.